This, as many of you know, is In Depth with Dan Haggerty. It is a series of segments that we do, and we ask for feedback and involvement from all of you at home. I tackle difficult topics sometimes, things that can be controversial. Sometimes I have an opinion on those things. It all relies, though, on you and your emails and your ideas. So please email me at dan@WRAL.com. Respond to the stories that you see us cover, or send me some of your thoughts on stories that you want to see us tackle on this segment. I still get a ton of emails about our coverage of political ads, which can frankly hide behind free speech to blatantly and intentionally mislead you with lies.
There's no statute that say, thou shalt not lie. Maybe exaggeration is an appropriate way of saying something.
So can people flat out lie in these political ads?
Well, certainly they can, and they have.
There was a viewer who emailed me about this. Apparently a former member of the North Carolina House sent me an email that pointed out that, quote, you can still be sued for lying. He also shared a link to a WRAL story in 2014 where Governor Roy Cooper, who was Attorney General at the time, settled a lawsuit for libel over a campaign ad that a political rival said misrepresented lawyers who had won a big class action lawsuit against the state in the 90s. So the email that I got makes a really great point. If you lie in a political ad, free speech won't protect you from a lawsuit, but it can make it really difficult to win one of those lawsuits, which is why we almost never see them.
Those defamation cases are very hard to win because if you're running for public office, you are what the law calls you a public figure. And if you are a public figure, it means the only way that you can win a defamation case is by showing that the person defaming you knew what they were saying was false.
And that is very, very difficult to do, especially as we've stated several times before. The people who make these ads have lawyers look at them first, not to make sure that they're true, but to make sure that they can't be sued over them. But even if you look at that Cooper case, the actual ad ran back in 2000, and the case wasn't actually settled until 2014. 14 years later, an emphasis on the word settled. I mean, some could have argued that Cooper was just paying that money to make it all go away before his run for governor, which came shortly after. And the only reason it wouldn't go away is because the law firm that was filing the complaint was willing to run that legal marathon for more than a decade, which was probably more expensive than just paying the settlement, which was $75,000. All of this to say, this kind of money talks, lawless, Wild West political world that we seem to live in has left some viewers a bit uneasy and wanting protection from it. Dale emailed me this. He said, free speech works both ways. Doesn't WRAL have an equal right to scroll a message under the ads? To wit, warning, this message may contain false, misleading, or unverified information. Viewer discretion is advised. And Dwayne sent this. How about the broadcasting company, yeah, that's you guys, follow the untruthful ad with a short message noting the inaccuracies and pointing out the truth. And unfortunately, that would just be impossible. I mean, there are too many ads. There are too many claims. And truth, well, truth is an interesting thing to define. We learn that every time Paul Spade brings out the truth meter for Politifact, don't we? His team analyzes claims made by politicians, candidates, and PACs in ads and on the campaign trail. But there is simply too much to check. We would need 1,000 Paul Spades to make that happen. Unfortunately, we don't have 1,000 Paul Spades, but we do have one, and he does a pretty good job. So let's talk to him about the work that he does. Paul, with all of the different content out there today that needs to be fact-checked, how do you decide where to focus?
Well, put simply, we try to focus on what people are talking about. Often that's what's being put on the airwaves and political ads that are being, broadcast far and wide. But you're right, there's a lot to consider. In North Carolina, there are over 150 legislative races. There's 14 congressional districts. There's statewide races. There's the presidential race to think about. And so there's a lot out there, and we have to really spend our time wisely deciding, what are people going to care about and which claims are maybe going to make a difference in one of those those races.
You know, we give people a lot of say on this segment to email me in and talk about the topics they're interested in. Does that help as well if people email you about things?
Yes, we take suggestions. I hope people feel invited to participate in this process, because there are people calling and emailing us from the political campaigns as well. They call us up and say, hey, did you see my opponent said this? That's off base. It's a personal attack, or it's misrepresentation of the facts of this bill or this law or whatever. Right. And so the people who are running for office participate. I'd love for our viewers to email me. You know,
often the things that you do never really fall in these definite sides of true or false. You use a spectrum, right? There's a scale that you use. But I assume that kind of complicates things as well, to figure out where something falls.
Right. It's hard to say whether or not an ad is completely true or completely false due to the nature of political ads, specifically whether they're on TV or the radio. They're shortened to 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and so there's a lot of context being left out. Thankfully, we have the truth-o-meter, and so when we do rate claims that are made in those ads, we take into consideration how much context is being left out, and then was that context important, or was it just some extra stuff that it was okay to leave out for the bigger picture?
Where can people find your work?
WRAL.com under the Politifact section.
Sounds good. Paul, thank you. Still, lots of viewers, they want more, okay? They want accountability on their terms. They want trust. And I don't blame you. Joshua sent this one. Who is the king that decides which ad is true and which is not? Therein lies the problem with media corporations and politicians. I got some thoughts on Joshua's email. Maybe you do too. Let me know what you think. Email me at dan@WRAL.com. Get involved in this conversation and others that I think are really important to what's going on in this community. The in-depth team also, I should mention, we plan to have a really busy month or so. We have a lot of ideas and stories to roll out, and that starts this week. So please watch here at 7 o'clock, follow me on social media, and take some agency in the way that we cover the news.